Once upon a time, there was a boy named
Jack!
He lived with his mother.
Jack, and his mother lived on a farm.
Actually, it was a very small farm.
The fact is, they only had one cow.
Moo.
And every morning, while he was trying his best to sleep late, he would hear,
Jack!
"Yes, Mother?"
It's time to milk the cow.
"Yes, Mother."
So he did.
And Jack,
"Yes, Mother?"
take the milk to the market.
"Yes, Mother." Every day, Jack took the milk to sell at the market.
Now, at the time our story takes place, in the place where our story takes place, conditions were harsh.
There was a drought
No rain,
and famine,
no food,
and general malaise.
no fun.
The crops were not plentiful and the animals were not fat and healthy.
One morning,
Jack, it's time to milk the cow.
Jack went to milk the cow.
but she was not fat and healthy, and she gave very little milk.
Meh.
Jack,
"Yes, Mother?"
it's time to sell the cow. Take her to the market and see that you can get no less than 5 pounds for her.
So, Jack took the cow to market.
Along the way, he saw a stranger walking towards him.
The stranger walked with a limp.
And a cane.
Hey there. Hello there, Jack.
Said the stranger.
Where are you going with that cow?
"My mother says I must sell her at the market for no, that's not right, for no less than 5 pounds.
She does not look well. Meh.
"I know. I'm afraid she's not worth much money."
I'll give you something to her.
"You will? Not less than 5 pounds.
No, something worth a lot more.
The stranger opened his hand and showed Jack.
Magic beans.
Beans?
Magic beans.
The stranger reached into his pocket and pulled out 5 large beans. He gave the beans to Jack, then took the cow's rope and led her away.
Meh.
And Jack ran home to his mother.
"Mother, look! See what I got for the cow? Magic beans."
Beans?
"They aren't just any beans, Mother. They're Before he could finish, Jack's mother snatched the beans out of his hand and threw them out the window where they hit the hard, dry ground.
Night fell. That
Rain fell.
And those beans began to grow.
They grew. Ooh.
And grew.
Ooh.
And grew.
Ooh.
And in the morning, Jack woke to find a giant beanstalk growing right outside his window.
Ooh, wow! Now, Jack just naturally wanted to climb that beanstalk.
So he climbed.
And he climbed
And he climbed.
until he reached the top.
Whew!
When he got there, he could hear a sound.
A very large sound.
And it was coming from a very large house.
Jack tiptoed up to the house. He looked inside and he saw a giant. Shh.
The giant was fast asleep at his table.
On his table were stacks and stacks of silver coins.
Jack wanted that silver.
He opened the window.
He crept up towards the table.
He tripped.
Oh no!
He fell and woke the giant.
The giant hated to be awakened from his nap, and he pounded on the table, spilling silver coins all over the floor. Jack scooped up the silver and started to run.
And the giant ran after him.
He ran back to the beanstalk as fast as he could.
And the giant ran after him.
He climbed down that beanstalk as fast as he could.
And the giant climbed down after him.
When he got to the bottom, he grabbed an axe and
He chopped down that beanstalk.
while that giant was still on it.
And when he fell, the silver fell with him.
It positively rained silver.
Three soldiers trudged down a road in a strange country. They were trying to get home from the wars. Besides being tired, they were hungry. In fact, they had eaten nothing for 2 days.
Oh, how I would like a good dinner tonight.
And a bed to sleep in.
But that is all impossible. We must march on. They marched. Still Suddenly, ahead of them, they saw the lights of a village.
Maybe we'll find a bite to eat there.
And a loft to sleep in.
No harm in asking. Now the peasants of that place were afraid of strangers. When they heard that 3 soldiers were coming down the road, they talked among themselves.
Look, soldiers!
Ha, soldiers.
Soldiers are always hungry.
We have little enough for ourselves.
Yeah!
And the people hurried to hide their food.
That's the grain we hid under the hay in the haylofts.
Buckets of milk down the wells.
We spread old quilts over the bins of root vegetables.
Cabbages and potatoes under the beds.
Meat in the cellars.
We hid all our food.
Then we waited.
Good evening, good people.
Could you spare a bit of food?
For 3 hungry soldiers?
Oh,
We've had no food for ourselves for 3 days.
It's been a very poor harvest this year.
Yeah.
Have you somewhere we might sleep for one night?
oh no.
Our beds are full.
Yeah.
The 3 soldiers went from door to door. Not one family had a morsel to give away. It had been a poor harvest. All the grain must be kept for seed or feed for the livestock. One family had a sick father to care for. Others had too many mouths to feed.
Good people.
We are 3 hungry soldiers in a strange land. We have asked you for food, and you say you haven't had enough to share.
It seems that all you have too much of is stones.
So, the only thing to do is...
To make
Stone soup.
Stone soup?
soup from
What? How?
We can show you how.
First, we need a large pot.
The biggest you can find.
I know where to find one.
That's none too large.
But it will have to do.
Now we need water to fill it and a fire to heat it.
It took many buckets of water to fill the pot.
A fire was built on the village square and the pot was set to boil.
And now, if you please, 3 round, smooth stones.
Those were easy enough to find.
The peasants' eyes grew round as they watched the stones drop into the pot.
The soldiers began to stir.
Any soup needs salt and pepper. get some?
Stones like these generally make good soup.
But oh, if there are carrots, it would be much better.
Back she
Why, I think I might have an old carrot or two.
She came right back with her apron full of carrots from the bin beneath her red quilt.
A good stone soup should have some cabbage.
But there's no use asking for what you don't have.
I think I could find a cabbage somewhere.
back she came with 3 cabbages from under her bed.
Now, if we only had but no.
What? If we only had what?
No, it's no use. That's just not possible.
What? Tell us.
Tell us.
Tell us.
We were thinking,
What?
if we only had a bit of beef,
And a few potatoes.
And a little barley.
and just a cup of milk, this soup would be
Good enough for a rich man's table.
In fact, the king requested such a soup when he last dined with us.
But it's no use asking for what you don't have.
Potatoes.
Beef.
Barley.
The soldiers had entertained the king.
A rich man's soup, all from a few stones.
It must be magic.
The peasants brought their barley from the lofts.
They brought their buckets of milk up from the wells.
The soldiers stirred the barley and milk into the steaming broth, while the peasants stared.
At last, the soup was ready.
Hooray!
All of you shall taste. There's enough for everyone.
But first, a table must be set.
Great tables were placed around the square.
And all around were lighted torches.
Such a soup.
How good it smells.
Surely fit for a king.
With such a soup, we need some bread.
And a roast.
And cider.
Soon a banquet was spread, and everyone sat down to eat.
Never had there been such a feast.
Never had the peasants tasted such soup.
And? What do you think? Made from stones.
They ate and drank and ate.
And after that they danced.
They danced far into the night.
And at last they were tired. Is there not a loft where we could sleep?
Let 3 such wise and splendid gentlemen sleep in a hayloft?
Indeed.
They must have the best beds in the village.
So the first soldier slept.
In the priest's house.
The second soldier slept.
At the baker's house.
And the third soldier slept
at the mayor's house. In the morning,
the whole village gathered in the square to give them a send-off.
Many thanks for what you have taught us.
We shall never go hungry now.
Now that we know how to make soup from stones.
Oh, it's all a knowing how.
and off they went down the road.
Men don't grow on every bush.
The moral is, through sharing, we all become richer.
And now, an important word from one of our fine sponsors.
Hey, hon, kids, it's Friday night, and I was thinking, how about I treat the whole family to dinner out?
Oh, that sounds wonderful, dear. I could use a night off from the kitchen.
Yay, I love eating out.
Me too, thanks, Dad.
So, where should we go? Hon?
Let me think for a moment.
How about the Burger Barn?
Well, I was thinking something a little more formal, not fancy, mind you. Somewhere where we could be waiting on and not having to be ordering from the counter.
I say we go to the lettuce land.
Yuck! You would suggest that. Dad, don't make us go to salad place, please.
That's enough. If you two are going to complain, we could just stay home and have...
That's it. I know the perfect place. Let's go to the Leftover Cafe.
Yeah,
Yay!
awesome.
Awesome.
That's perfect, dear.
Last one in the car is a rotten egg.
Yeah, you'd be awesome.
Ooh.
This family knows for a great evening out, there's no place like Aunt Lottie's Leftover Cafe. Located on Historic Highway 178, right next to the local hazardous waste disposal site. The Leftover Cafe is a truly unique dining experience. There are no printed menus, but our courteous and professional staff will help guide you in your dining choices. The Leftover Cafe features cuisine from some of the finest dining establishments in the area, served piping hot on our trademark Melmac dinner plates. Aunt Lottie's chefs are highly trained. They are experts in combing the neighborhood to find the finest culinary fare for your dining pleasure.
Hey Joe, smell this?
Chicken masala.
I think we just found our Friday special.
Yeah, give me a minute to box it all up.
Hey, I told you guys to stop hanging around the back of the store. Now beat it or I'll call the cops.
We all know that food always next day, and at the Leftover Cafe, that's all we serve. Our staff is so committed to providing your family with the highest quality in restaurant fare that they will exhaust every option, no matter how unconventional, to bring your fancy food at affordable prices.
Hey lady, you want to finish that?
Yes, I was.
No, you don't want to eat all of that. You just want to blow up like my fat Aunt Bertha. Here, let me scrape some of that off your plate.
Hey, you! I told you to get out of here. Now scram and don't come back.
Why not visit the Leftover Cafe this weekend? You'll be glad you did. And don't forget our week-old leftover specials. They're perfect for entertaining those out-of-town relatives who just happen to drop by.
Hey, Dad, what did you get?
I don't know. Something with noodles, but it sure tastes great.
Aunt Lottie's Leftover Cafe on Highway 178, a truly unique dining experience.
When our story begins, Alice has already been through so very many curious adventures.
Curiouser and curiouser.
Ever since she suddenly found herself falling helplessly down, down, down a very deep rabbit hole into a strange world.
Dear, dear, how queer everything is today.
A world full of the most eccentric creatures, a singing white rabbit with a waistcoat pocket watch.
How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail, and pour the waters of the Nile in every golden scale? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly spells his calls, and welcomes little fishes in with gently smiling jaws.
A nasty, tempered old duchess who shook her baby so violently it turned into a pig.
Wah! Wah!
A hookah-smoking caterpillar who demanded to know of Alice.
Who are you?
I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least, I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have changed several times since then.
What do you mean by that? Explain yourself.
I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir, because I'm not myself, you see.
I don't see.
I'm afraid I can't put it more clearly, for I can't understand it myself to begin with, and being so many different sizes in a day is very confusing.
It isn't.
Well, perhaps you haven't found it so yet, but when you have to turn into a chrysalis, you will someday, you know, and then after that into a butterfly. I should think you'll feel a little queer, won't you?
Not a bit.
Well, perhaps your feelings may be different. All I know is it would feel very queer to me.
You! Who are you?
I think you ought to tell me who you are first.
Why?
Here was another puzzling question, and as Alice could not think of any good reason, and as the caterpillar seemed to be in a very unpleasant state of mind, she turned away.
Come back. I have something important to say.
Yes. Well,
keep your temper.
Is that all?
No. So you think you're changed, do you?
I'm afraid I am, sir. I can't remember things as I used, and I don't keep the same size for 10 minutes together.
Can't remember what things?
Well, I've tried to say, how doth the little busy bee? But it came all different.
Recite. You are old, Father William. You are old, Father William.
You are old, Father William, the young man said, and your hair has become very white, and yet you insistently stand on your head. Do you think at your age it is right?
In my youth, Father William replied to his son, I feared it might injure the brain. But now that I'm perfectly sure I have none, why do it again and again?
You are old, said the youth, and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than suet. You finished the goose with the bones in the beak. Pray, how did you manage to do it?
In my youth, said his father, I took to the law and argued each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which it gave to my jaw has lasted the rest of my life.
You are old, said the youth, as I mentioned before, and have grown most uncommonly fat.
That is not said right.
Not quite right, I'm afraid. Some of the words have got altered.
It's wrong from beginning to end. What size do you want to be?
Oh, I'm not particular as to size, only one who doesn't like changing so often, you know.
I don't know. Are you content now?
Well, I should like to be a little larger, sir, if you wouldn't mind. 3 inches is such a wretched height to be.
It is a very good height indeed.
But I'm not used to it.
You'll get used to it in time.
Alice left the caterpillar, confused as ever, and wondering what could possibly happen next. Alice now found herself walking through a wood. When she was a little startled by seeing the Cheshire Cat sitting on a bough of a tree, a few yards off, the cat only grinned when it saw Alice. It looked good-natured, she thought, still it had very long claws and a great many teeth, so she felt to be treat with respect.
Cheshire Puss, would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?
That depends on a good deal on where you want to get to.
I don't much care where.
Then it doesn't matter which way you go.
So long as I get somewhere.
Oh, you're sure to do that if only you walk long enough.
Alice felt like this could not be denied, so she tried another question.
What sort of people live about here?
In that direction lives a hatter, and in that direction lives a March hare. Visit you either you like. They're both mad.
But I don't want to go among mad people.
Oh, you can't help that. We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad.
How do you know I'm mad?
You must be, or you wouldn't have come here.
Alice didn't think that proved it at all. However, she went on.
And how do you know that you're mad?
To begin with, the dog's not mad. You grant that?
I suppose so.
Well, then you see, a dog growls when he's angry and wags his tail when he's pleased. Now I growl when I'm pleased and wag my tail when I'm angry. Therefore, I'm mad.
With that, the cat vanished quite slowly, beginning with the end of the tail and ending with a grin, which remained some time after the rest of it had gone.
Oh, I'm sorry, wrong music.
Well, I've often seen a cat without a grin, but a grin without a cat is the most curious thing I ever saw in my life.
Wait, stop. Okay. So, I'm going to stop that recording. We can fix the, later.
Well, I've often seen a cat without a grin, but a grin without a cat is the most curious thing I ever saw in my life.
Alice waited a little, half expecting to see it again, but it did not appear, and after a minute or two she walked in the direction where the March hare was said to live.
I've seen hatters before. The March hare will be much the most interesting, and perhaps, as this is May, it won't be raving mad, at least not so mad as it was in March.
She had not gone much farther before she came in sight of the March hare. She thought it must be the right house because the chimneys were shaped like ears, the roof was thatched with fur, it was quite large, formidable, and she walked up to it towards rather timidly, saying to herself,
Suppose it should be raving mad after all. I almost wish I'd gone to see the hatter instead.
There was a table set out under a tree in front of the house. The March hare and the hatter were having tea at it.
The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might.
He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright.
Excuse me?
And this was odd because it was the middle of the night.
A dormouse was sitting in between them, fast asleep, and the other two were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it, and was talking over its head.
Very uncomfortable for the dormouse. Only as it's asleep. I suppose it doesn't mind.
The table was a large one, but the three were all crowded together in the corner of it.
The moon was shining sulkily because she thought the sun had not got no business to be there. After the day was done,
It's very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil the fun.
Excuse me?
The sea was wet as it could be, the sand was dry. You couldn't not see a cloud because there was no cloud in the sky.
No birds were flying overhead. There were no birds to fly.
Please!
no room.
No room.
No room.
There's plenty of room.
Have some wine.
I don't see any wine.
There isn't any.
Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it.
It wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited.
I didn't know it was your table. It's laid for a great many more than 3.
No room, no room.
Your hair wants cutting.
You should learn not to make personal remarks. It's very rude.
Why is a raven like writing a desk?
Come now, we shall have some fun. I'm glad they've begun asking riddles. I believe I can guess that.
Do you mean you think you can find the answer to it?
Exactly so.
Then you should say what you mean.
I do. At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know.
Not the same thing a bit. You may just as well say that I see what I eat. It's the same thing as I eat what I see.
You might as well just say, I like what I get. This is the same thing as I get what I like.
You might just as well say that I breathe when I sleep is the same thing as I sleep when I breathe.
It is the same thing with you. What day of the month is it?
The Hatter had taken his watch out of his pocket and was looking uneasily, shaking it every now and then. And holding it up to his ear, Alice considered a little, then said,
The 4th.
2 days wrong. I told you butter wouldn't suit the works.
It was the best butter.
Yes, but some crumbs must have got in as well. You should have put it in with the same bread knife.
The March Hare took the watch and looked at it gloomily. Then he dipped it into his cup of tea and looked at it again, but he could think of nothing better to say than his first remark.
It was the best butter, you know.
Alice had been looking over his shoulder with some curiosity.
What a funny watch. It tells the day of the month and doesn't tell what o'clock it is.
Why should it? Does your watch tell what year it is?
Of course not. But that's because it stays the same year for such a long time together.
Which is the same case with mine.
Alice felt dreadfully puzzled. The Hatter's remark seemed to have no sort of meaning in it, and yet it was certainly English.
I don't quite understand you.
The dormouse is asleep again,
said the Hatter, and he poured a little hot tea upon its nose.
Of course. Just what I was going to remark myself.
Have you guessed the riddle yet?
No, I give it up.
I haven't the slightest idea.
Nor I.
I think you might do something better with the time than waste it in asking riddles that have no answers.
If you knew time as well as I do, you wouldn't be talking about wasting it. It's him.
I don't know what you mean.
Of course you don't. I dare say you never spoke to time.
Perhaps not, but I know I have to beat time when I learn music.
Ah, that accounts for it. He won't stand beating now. If you only kept on good terms with him, he'd almost do anything you'd like with the clock. For instance, it were 9 o'clock in the morning, just time to begin lessons. You'd only have a whisper to hint to time, and round goes the clock in a twinkling. 1:30, time for dinner.
I only wish it was.
That would be grand, certainly. But then I shouldn't be hungry for it, you know.
Not at first, perhaps, but you keep it 1:30 as long as you'd like.
Is that the way you manage?
Not I. We quarreled last March, just before the hair went mad. You know, it was at the great concert given by the Queen of Hearts. I had to sing. Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder where you at. You know the song, perhaps?
I've heard something like it.
It goes on, you know, in this way. Up above the world to fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle.
Here the dormouse shook itself and began singing in its sleep.
Twinkle, 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 twinkle.
And it went on so long that it had to pinch it to make it stop.
Well, I'd hardly finished the first verse when the Queen of Hearts jumped up and bawled out, "He's muttering time! Off with his head!"
Dreadfully savage!
Ever since that, he won't do a thing I ask. It's always 6 o'clock now.
A bright idea came into Alice's head.
Is that the reason so many tea things are put out here?
Yes, that's it. It's always tea time, and we've no time to wash the things between whiles.
Then you keep moving round, I suppose.
Exactly so, as things get used up.
But what happens when you come to the beginning again?
I suppose we change the subject.
I'm getting tired of this. I vote the young lady tells us a story.
I'm afraid I don't know one.
Then the dormouse shall.
Wake up, dormouse. And they pinched it on both sides at once. The dormouse slowly opened his eyes.
I wasn't asleep. I heard every word you fellows were saying.
All right.
What's the story? Oh.
Yep. Sorry.
Tell us the story.
Yes, please do.
Be quick about it, or you'll be asleep again before it's done.
Once upon a time, there were 3 little sisters, and their names were Elise, Lacey, and Tilly, and they lived at the bottom of a well.
What did they live on?
They lived on pudding.
They couldn't have done that, you know. They'd have been ill.
So they were. Very ill.
Alice tried to fancy to herself what such an extraordinary way of living would be like, but it puzzled her too much.
But why did they live at the bottom of a well?
Take some more tea.
I've had nothing yet, so I can't take more.
You mean you can't take less? It's a lot easier to take more than nothing. Nobody asked your opinion. Who's making personal remarks now?
Alice did not quite know what to say to this, so she helped herself upon some tea and bread and butter, then turned to the Dormouse and repeated her question.
Why did they live at the bottom of the well?
The Dormouse again took a minute or two to think about it.
It was a pudding well.
There is no such thing.
If you can't be civil, you'd better finish the story for yourself.
No, please go on. I won't interrupt again. I dare say there may be one.
One indeed. And so these three little sisters, they were learning to draw, you know.
What did they draw?
Pudding.
I want to clean up. Let's all move one place on.
He moved on as he spoke. The Dormouse followed him, and the March Hare moved into the Dormouse's place. And Alice rather unwillingly took the place of the March Hare. The Hatter was the one who got the advantages from the change, and Alice was a good deal worse off than before. The March Hare had just upset the milk jug into his plate. Alice did not wish to offend the Dormouse again, so she began very casual.
But I don't understand. Where did they draw the trickle from?
You can draw water out of a water well, so I should think you can draw a treacle out of a treacle well. Stupid.
But they were in the well.
Of course they were. Well in.
This answer so confused poor Alice that she let the Dormouse go on for some time without interrupting.
They were learning to draw, and they drew all manner of things. Everything that begins with an M.
Why with an M?
Why not?
Alice was silent. The Dormouse had closed its eyes by this time, and it was going off into a doze. But on being pinched by the Hatter, it woke up again with a little shriek and went on.
That begins with an M, such as mousetraps and the moon, and memory and muchness. You know you say things are much of a muchness. Did you ever see such a thing as a drawing of muchness?
Really? Now you ask me, I don't think.
Then you shouldn't talk.
This piece of rudeness was more than Alice could bear. She got up in great disgust and walked off. The Dormouse fell asleep instantly, and neither of the others took at least to notice her going off, though she looked back once or twice, half hoping that they would call her after. The last time she saw them, they were trying to put the Dormouse into a teapot.
At any rate, I'll never go there again.
Rabble, 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 rabble.
Said Alice as she picked her way through the wood.
That's the stupidest tea party I was ever at in all my life.
Just as she said this, she noticed one of the trees had a door leading right into it.
That's very curious. But everything's curious today. I think I may as well go in at once.
And in she went.